We're back on The Big Show, and it's always nice to talk to a big star and a talented star and a mega star as well. Ali Campbell, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, after that wonderful introduction.
Well, it's amazing to talk to you because, you know, when you read your CV, you think, oh, Ali Campbell, UB40, just another British band. But you're not, because you've sold millions and millions and millions of records. And I was just in Vegas a few months ago, and you're on the radio there. Then I come here, you're on the radio here, you go to Europe. I mean, you've literally taken the world by storm.
Well, that was my mission, you know, when we started UB40 28 years ago. My mission was to promote reggae and to promote dub even more. And now everybody knows what dub is, of course, 'cause 28 years has passed and all of your contemporary music is dub, really, you know. So, yeah, I mean, we are a worldwide sort of sound, you know. And my new band, the Debt Band, I'm going to be taking around the world to everywhere where UB40 went. That sounds like a nursery rhyme, doesn't it? Everywhere where UB40 went. But yeah, I've promised that, and that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm out now again touring around the world with the new band.
I've listened to this new CD, and to be honest with you, it's so you, and that's the thing about UB40. I know that was the band, but you were the sound, weren't you?
Well, I think they'd disagree with you there, but you know, I was always a lead singer with UB40, and of course I wrote all the melodies, you know, most of the melodies, you know, with the exception of sort of half a dozen that were written by Norman or Earl or Astro. But yeah, basically 24 albums I wrote the tunes for. So now that I'm not with UB40 and I'm writing new tunes, you know, they have a familiar tinge to them, you know. But, you know, that's unavoidable because, you know, I was the voice of UB40.
What were you like as a child?
I was the baby of the family. So I think I was the funny man, you know, in the family. I got away with a lot. I didn't get the discipline that my older brothers got, you know. I was the youngest of four brothers. So basically, yeah, I was kind of indulged, you know.
And when did you first realise that music was going to be your future? When did you first hear something that you thought, God, I'd love to be able to do that?
Well, my father was a folk singer, you know, and he had a big club and a big band, you know, in the 60s. He had the biggest folk club in Europe for a time at the Digbeth Civic Hall. So I grew up with folk music and with instruments around the house, you know. But I also grew up in Borsall Heath in Birmingham. My dad was off touring most of the time, and I was, you know, on the streets, and the music of the streets was reggae, you know. So, and folk music never had enough bass for me. In fact, it didn't have any bass, you know. So, you know, I went in a different direction. I think I was a product of my environment, really, you know. I was going to blues parties when I was 11 and 12 years old, you know, and I was tolerated because I was only 2 foot tall, you know, and I was a kid, you know, and so I wasn't intimidated by the scene, you know, where a lot of white people were and still are, you know, for shebeens, not that you get any these days. So it was perfectly natural for me, you know, to love reggae. And, you know, I grew up on soul as well. You know, I was a mad Michael Jackson fan because I'm the same age as him. And, you know, I could sing all the same Michael Jackson songs, you know, Got to Be There and stuff. And I used to sing those in the playground. But I never thought that I'd be a singer. I just loved music, you know, I loved... and I was a bit of an anorak as far as reggae was concerned.
I can't imagine you kind of gargling with Evian and doing 16 scales.
Well, I gargled with a few things every time, but not Evian. No, I think the secret to my voice is pleurisy. You know, a lot of people call it soul. I call it pleurisy, you know, and I do sing through my nose, actually, which is why I've never had polyps or nodules, and that's what I've been told by a doctor, you know. I've had all of the laryngitises and pharyngitises. I've had all of them, but luckily I've escaped any serious damage to my throat because I do sing through my nose.
And what kind of toll does that take during a live concert? Because you've got to fill the arenas. I know you've got big PA systems and everything, but your sound is so distinctive. Where are you singing from? Because I know, I don't want to get too into this, but some people sing from the stomach, some people sing from the throat. You saying it's out the nose. Is that a pressure?
It's from my balls. It's from my balls and out through my nose. Word up.
You've been doing it a long time and you've had so many of them. Is there one song in a show that you look forward to singing still?
Well, I don't tire of the, you know, what some people call millstones, like Red, Red Wine and Can't Help Falling in Love, Kingston Town, Homely Girl. Those songs, I love performing because they always get a great reaction. You know, I'd be unhappy about performing any song that didn't get a good reaction. You know, but those classics, always get a great reaction. So it's always a delight to play them.
Does it ever become normal when you're just driving in the car and some idiot like me hits a record and it's yours?
Well, back in the day, you know, when we were getting all of the chart success, and I think we had more top 20 hits than any other band in Britain in the 80s. Back in the day, it was strange listening to yourself, but then it became boring listening to yourself. You know what I mean? It's like when you got on that A list, it became sort of, we're on the radio again.
And what about today? Because you're still contemporary. I'm still playing your records virtually daily. And that's so interesting because a lot of the 80s acts have gone and they've aged. And as people, they don't seem to be as grounded as you are.
Well, they're all coming back as well, which I think is very funny. You know, I stayed with UB40 for 28 years. You know, all these bands are getting back together again after 28 years, but 18 years apart. I've just left.
But they won't last, you see, in my opinion, because it's novelty. You've never been a novelty act. You've been a consistent group. That's different, isn't it? How have you managed to do that?
Well, that's why we didn't sign with Jerry, you know, when he asked us to sign with the Two-Tone label. It was because we didn't want to be part of a fad. We weren't interested in playing ska, you know. We loved ska because we were reggae fans, so, you know, I mean, before reggae it was ska and rocksteady. So but we weren't interested in, bringing that back. We always wanted to be, you know, our own style of reggae band, you know. When you're writing a song, if you come up with a good idea, what you think is a good idea, and you don't write it down, because I don't read or write music, if I come back to it the next day and I can't remember it, then it's not worth pursuing.
And then the tune that you hear in your head, how do you get that on paper then? Do you have to sing it to somebody to transcribe?
Well, normally I'll be writing to a backing track. That's normally how I do it. You know, so it's different with each tune. Sometimes you do a tune without a backing track, but normally I do it to a backing track. And I'm writing it in my head. So by the time I've written the melody, I know it, and then I can just go in and do it, you know. And I don't like going into a studio without doing, you know, the prep work. I don't like wasting time in the studio because I want to get the first take, you know. I want to get the spontaneity.
You're so comfortable being you, and I like that about you because artists seem to get bored of themselves.
Well, I'm a self-taught musician, so I can only play reggae, you know, to tell the truth. You know, I'd love to be able to play jazz, but, you know, I'm not that proficient. I play reggae because I love reggae, you know, and nobody can test me on reggae because I grew up on it, you know. So I know what I want from a record. And what's wonderful about the new album and why it's called Flying High, after the last one was called Running Free, is because I feel out from under because I'm in a position now where I can do what I want to do and it's not compromising anymore, you know.
All right, we'll come back and talk about that next. We're going to play a track off this brand new album. What's the best track on it then?
Oh, I'd go for Nothing Ever Changes with, I'm joined by a gentleman from Germany who's brilliant.
We're back with Ali Campbell on your favourite local radio station. It's Alex Belfield playing tracks from the brand new album Flying High. And this really is a renaissance for you, isn't it? It's a chance to be back at the top after the UB40 split. Let's put that to bed. Got to talk about it. You were so closely associated, but it wasn't the band that put you off. It was the business that put you off, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had problems with the UB40's management of the time. I think they've got different management now, or they've got more management. I was after information, and I still haven't got it. They put their company into administration to scupper my court date, and it's still now in suspension. But I really want to leave that all behind, you know, because I am happy with what I'm doing. I've got my new band, the Debt Band. You know, I've got great dates coming up. I've got a fabulous album, and you know, that was then, and this is now.
It must be disappointing, though, when you've created something that's so internationally successful and the best at it. Let's face it, there was nobody like you at the time. There still isn't anybody like you, and you've had to leave it behind, not because you were bored of doing it or because the band fell out. It seems such a shame that business has got in the way of entertainment, and then the two will never mix, will they? Well,
no, and, I feel particularly betrayed by the 6 remaining members of UB40. Mickey Virtue left, the keyboard player, and he's with me in my new band. And I'm I'm glad to be where I am now, and I'm happy not to be where they are.
Would you ever go back to UB40 if business was different?
No, I don't think so. I'm enjoying flying high with a new band, you know, and it's been 18 months now, so it's old news, you know, and we've been playing around Europe and in Russia and Romania and Albania. Then we went on to do a tour proper, which was the second Ragamuffin tour in Australia and New Zealand, and the response that we got there, the Depp Band, was better, I think, than any response I've ever had, you know. So I now can't wait to take this, you know, especially through Britain now in the next couple of weeks, and then across the world.
This might seem a leading question or a leading statement, actually, and I don't mean it to be facetious, but I don't see how they continue without you, because to me, you were UB40. It's a bit like Elton John having somebody else sing his songs. I can't imagine anybody else doing it.
Would you go and see Derek Jagger and the Rolling Stones? I think not, you know. And I think they should be calling themselves New B40, you know. I don't think they've got any right to call themselves UB40 because, you know, I haven't seen one of their live shows yet, but what I've been shown, I'm very shocked at, you know. Enough said.
All right, we'll move on from that and talk about this new album, Flying High. This is a statement, isn't it, really? This is you saying, 2 fingers up, I'm still successful, I'm still touring, I'm still Ali Campbell.
Yeah, well, yeah, quite right. Running Free, you know, did really well. That went in at number 9, you know, and that was my first, was my second solo album. This is the third, and they're getting better as I do them, you know, because, again, I'm learning in public, you know, just like I did with UB40. But, you know, if you look at Big Love, you can see there's something there. Then you look at Running Free, and it's got Sly and Robbie and Smokey Robinson and people like that on it. So that's getting good. And now this is better, you know, even though Sly and Robbie aren't on this album, it's actually a harder, heavier reggae album, you know, but it's still accessible and it's got, you know, cute tunes on it.
And it's fun as well, and it seems like you're enjoying yourself. Is it nice to be able to pick up the phone and go, would you sing on my record? And before they think about it, they say yes?
Well, not one person that I've asked in the 2 albums that I've just done has said no, you know, and that's been lovely. And the first person that agreed to work with me was Stevie Wonder, but and Gwen Stefani as well. But those are the 2 that haven't made it onto either album. Stevie actually did do a track and then lost it. On the last album, on Running Free, and Gwen was just too busy, you know, but those were the first 2 to agree to work with me, and of course, armed with that, I could then go ahead and ask everyone else, you know, if Stevie says yes, you know, and then, you know, I don't mind asking anyone else, which is why I asked Smokey Robinson, and to my utmost glee and happiness, he said yes.
Again, when you look at this new album, it doesn't sound like you're trying to be cocky and new and different. You're doing something that we know, you're doing it well. And you mentioned earlier that you somehow feel more comfortable and you're better at it. That's an extraordinary thing to say after you've been doing 20 years at the top of your game.
Well, no, because 28 years of making records and producing records, it was on this one that I finally got a balance between the bass guitar and the bass drum right. You know, and I honestly mean that. You know, I had a bit of an epiphany in the studio. I went, okay, so that's how it goes. You know, so I think you'll find that the drum and bass level on this album is perfect.
And of course, the people you work with, when you meet them, are you surprised that they know you? Does that ever become, good God, I'm just this guy from Birmingham and suddenly I'm meeting Smokey Robinson?
Well, I have worked with a lot of people, you know, being in a reggae band, it's kind of synonymous to reggae to work with each other and work with different people, different artists. And we started off very early on in our careers working, you know, with Chrissy Hind and with Robert Palmer and, you know, different people. And I love, you know, I love to write something and then add somebody because it sort of knocks me down a peg as well because I've just written a track that I think is brilliant and then I've got to put somebody on it, you know what I mean? And that's good.
And what pressure is there to sound like you on your record? Do you wake up in the morning and worry that suddenly that might not be there?
No. I think I've done one of the best vocals I've ever done on this. The lead track from Flying High is called Out From Under, and it's a Wayne Hector song. And I think that's one of the best vocals I've ever done.
And interestingly, you're working with contemporary artists like Craig David, I notice on this, and I've listened to the track. It's funny, isn't it, how I'm sure he'd want to be cool and trendy, and if he's working with you, that must mean that you're cool and trendy, because he's not to bring himself down. You seem to be so humble about it.
Well, the thing is, I've never had any problems with other artists, you know, especially Jamaican artists, you know. The only problems I've ever had have been with white middle-class journalists. You know what I mean? As artists go, I'm well loved and well respected, you know. And I think if people work with me, they know what to expect. They know that I'm down to earth and all I'm interested in is the rhythm.
And is that what the thing is about in this business? You were kind of created before the generation of I want to be famous. You actually just wanted to be an artist, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I'm not a pop factor, celebrity dude. You know, well, we were the real deal. You know, we were unemployed kids that made good. You know, but we were very, very lucky. You know.
Are you sneaky as well? Because this reggae thing, it immediately puts you in mind of the sunshine and of fun and of better places. So we're already on your side, aren't we?
Well, that was, you know, growing up in Birmingham. I'm joking. It was the opposite to what we had in Birmingham, wasn't it, you know? And as soon as we could afford to get to Jamaica, we were there, you know. I think we were on £35 a week at the time, but we still afforded our ticket to Jamaica, you know, back in the day. Because it was, for us, that was Mecca, you know. And I was really lucky because I ended up going into partnership in building a studio in Jamaica that was originally built by Bob Marley. So, I mean, that truly was hallowed ground for me. And I spent quite a lot of time, 17 years off and on, and 7 years with my own house there. And it was exactly where I should have been and exactly what I wanted out of life.
And you're really lucky now that you're in a position where you can pick and choose and you're able to walk away from something like UB40. Not everybody could do that. And create something that people have accepted and liked. How nervous were you when you released the previous album that people were going to go, no, not interested anymore?
Well, I think anybody that loved UB40, you know, or liked UB40, is obviously going to like what I'm doing, you know. So I wasn't overly worried. My main concern, I suppose, was getting a new band together because UB40 were a bunch of friends, you know, and those who didn't become band members became crew, and then we took our social circle off around the world for 28 years. So to form a new band was a little worrying, you know, or daunting. But I was very lucky, you know, and through mutual friends and stuff, we've gathered together a group of musicians who we get on, you know, we all get on together, and that's the most important thing. Even if, you know, they could be all great musicians, but if we didn't like each other, it would be impossible, you know.
Letting you walk away is like being the drummer that got away from the Beatles. I see no point them existing without you because, I mean, you were always going to continue and your songs are always going to be there. So it's an odd situation.
It is, yeah, and it's a sad situation. The saddest thing for me was after I'd left, UB40, the remaining members of New B40 released a record with Maxi Priest, which was called Dance Till the Morning Light, and it was the Vitalite advert, you know, it was the Israelites backing track. And, you know, I watched 28 years of street credibility go down the drain in one instance, and it hasn't got any better since, you know, so it's very sad what's happened there. But I suppose inevitable when I left.
I absolutely agree, and this new album is tremendous. If you like UB40, you're going to love this. It's beautifully made. There's some interesting people on it. I don't think you need that. That's the good thing as well. You're not working with these people because you need them. They kind of add something to you, and certainly with the Craig David track and things like that, and even the Smokey track.
Got Sway on there, you know, and I thought it was important because that was a song about the war, and it was important for me to get a young voice, you know, and see what they were thinking about the war, and I think it's very humorous what he comes up with, and very topical as well, you know. And of course I've got Lady Saw, who's the queen of dancehall, and well, the queen of reggae really. And I've got Danny Kaye from South Africa, who's a sort of middle of the road soul artist, you know, but who's very good, and he's big in South Africa, and he got us the Soweto Gospel Choir and the Drum Cafe as well. So that track, written by me and Jake Jackas, has become a sort of anthem, African, you know, positive anthem thing. And
Can we end with that? Because it's a beautiful tune.
Oh, Visions, yeah, go for it.
All right, Ali, thank you so much for talking to me. It's a real honour meeting you because you're just there, seems like every show with me. And for so many people, you kind of go back to a better place with music. And the 80s means something to a lot of people. And the songs that you created, I'm sure, have got a lot of kids through puberty. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you for asking nice questions. And hold it down, yeah.
All right, here's your new album then. It's called Flying High. And we'll end with this one, Visions, with Ali Campbell. Thanks for talking to us.
Cheers.